Hey, ABC Youth students. Man, we're so excited about tonight. Here is my interview with Nathan Kress from iCarly. Hey, ABC Youth. I'm sitting here kind of virtually with my friend Nathan Kress. Nathan
Hello.
is well known for being on the show iCarly, although he's a super talented guy who's done a lot of things. Nathan, it's good to see you, man. How have you been?
Doing all right, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to kind of be here, several hundred miles away from you. But it's weird that that's the reality now. I've been telecommunicating with a lot of people from really far away, and it's becoming bizarrely normal. So this is it's just another day in the coronavirus office. But it's been good. It's been a good time. How are you guys holding up out there?
Yeah, we're doing good. It's just been really interesting, running virtual youth groups, but it gives us cool chances to try things like this and get to interview people and let you guys share a little bit about your walk with Jesus and everything else too. So,
Yeah.
we had some questions that some students are probably wanting to know, and then I'd love to know just myself. What are you doing to stay busy right now during quarantine?
Oh boy. Well, for those that don't know, we have a 2-year-old here at home, my wife and I, and just kind of trying to keep her engaged and entertained and not super bored because she's so outdoorsy and wants to be very social with kids. Every time she hears a person's voice coming from someone else's backyard, she's like, "People, people, go see people." We can't. So yeah, just trying to keep her, entertained and everything. And I do a podcast as well with an actor friend of mine, Brett Davern, who is on an MTV show called Awkward.
Hmm.
And he's a dad too. He's got a like 5-year-old and 3-year-old. And we're going through a lot of the similar stuff just in the ages of our children and in our careers and everything. But now we're also self-isolating at home. So through the beauty of things like this, we've been able to keep doing our podcast and stuff. And I record in my closet alone, hunched over a microphone, and he
Awesome.
records somewhere else. And normally we're together, in a studio, and we're able to do it on camera and everything. So we're kind of having to make some sacrifices there, but it's been good. We're just kind of talking about what we're up to and what we want to see, kind of come out of this and some of the benefits that may happen. So if anybody wants to check that out, it's called Radioactive Dads. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything. The last couple episodes have been us just sort of talking about that. And in addition to that, it's actually been a really nice kind of reset opportunity for a lot of personal development and spiritual growth and relational development between my wife and I. We've been able to have some really great conversations, and I'm reading a really good book right now called Kingdom Man, which is actually right here. It's Tony Evans,
Yeah.
who is great. Fantastic book. There's Kingdom Woman, Kingdom Family, Kingdom Kids. So there's like something for everybody in there. And that's been fantastic. I'm about halfway through that, and doing a lot of really good devotions and stuff and getting started in that and just doing things that honestly I have really procrastinated on because life has just been so busy and I'm doing so many things to develop my own business and keep busy in my career. And London's busy with me trying to raise a child in this world. And there's just so many things that have pulled us away from what I think we're realizing is really important. And this sort of forced shutdown of the world has actually been really, I think, beneficial to take away a lot of those distractions in a mandatory way. And we've been able to carve out time to really get back to the basics and the things that matter the most. And hopefully this thing's going to go on long enough that those things become entrenched, because we would have a lot of phases where, we'd be really good at it for like 3 weeks, or a weekend. And
Mhm.
then something distracting would happen and we would fall off the wagon of, reading that we wanted to do, or, staying with the word and really staying involved. And, this is going to go on for a while now. So my goal is that we can get really locked in and sort of entrenched in those good habits. And even when the distracting things happen, it's going to be so much of a priority that we can stick with it, and really make it part of our lives in a daily, tangible way. So it's been good. It's actually, it's been kind of scary just with everything that's going on, but at the same time, it's been a really great opportunity that I hope other people are able to utilize too.
Yeah, that's great, man. I don't know if you're keeping busy with a 2-year-old. We have a very active 8-month-old who we were talking before this, and he's not
Yeah.
even crawling yet. I can't even imagine if he was running and trying to get everywhere. And so that's
Oh,
good for
dude.
you, man. Keeping her busy.
Yeah, I had to peel her off the top of our couch about 20 minutes ago because she was about to crack her skull open. She like got away from me and scrambled up the couch and goes, "I'm so high!" And was about to maybe die a little bit. So that's the fun thing. You keep, when kids are newborns, you're just trying to keep them alive by making sure they're eating and pooping and they don't, have a fart that's stuck in their body that gets stuck in there so long that their guts explode.
You're giving me
And then
nightmares thinking about that now, right? I'm gonna go check on him. Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It's a real issue that people just don't realize, and then it just becomes trying to keep them alive so they don't fall to their death off of the kitchen table.
Yeah. 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 Well, good for you, man. It was cool. We were chatting before we started recording this, and just hearing that you and London are keeping busy, but also just focusing on kind of refocusing priorities really. With Jesus, Alexa and I are doing a very similar thing and trying to, set goals and say, hey, this month of mandatory quarantine, what better chance than to really develop a good discipline of growing with Jesus. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, glad to hear you guys are doing it too.
Yeah. Well. So one of the big things that you're known for is a little role on a tiny show called iCarly,
Yeah.
and you played Freddie for
Yep.
5 seasons. It was five season run.
Yeah, I think it was technically we had one season that was so long they broke it in two. So I think on TV it was six, but
Okay,
yeah, like 109 episodes.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear just a little bit, about some memories you have from that show, things you enjoyed about it, or what even it was like auditioning for it. Anything that you think these guys would love to know.
Oh man. Okay. Well, yeah, the audition process was kind of just like anything else. What I think a lot of people, short of looking up interviews about me, may not know this. I actually was on a show called Drake and Josh, which
Mhm.
was kind of the predecessor to this show. It was made by the same production company, the same people who did All That and the Amanda Show, Zoe 101.
It's my
And
childhood. Yeah,
yeah,
all
same
that
here.
for
Drake and
sure.
Josh was my favorite show of all
Yeah.
time. And so I auditioned for that show before iCarly and got on it, and I played a pretty bit part. He only had a few lines, but it was this derpy little kid who was hitting on Megan. It was Miranda Cosgrove. So she was like the little sister to
Mhm.
Drake and Josh. And through that, I didn't realize it at the time, but iCarly was actually in development
Hmm.
when I was on Drake and Josh, and so they sort of pulled me aside and kind of just talked to me for a while, and got to know me a little bit, and just had a little chit chat with some of the executives who were there. And I didn't really know why. I thought it was kind of weird, but then I found out after the fact, like, oh, they might have you in mind for something else that might
Wow.
be thing. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was several months before that ever came to fruition. But then one day I got a audition for the untitled Miranda Cosgrove project,
Hmm.
um, and then saw that Dan was the executive producer on it, and I guessed that must have been this, that it must have been iCarly, but it didn't have that title at the time. And so I auditioned just like anybody else. There was no special treatment or anything. I was there with a bunch of other people who were auditioning for Freddie,
Yeah.
um, and went in. And it's funny, in acting circles, most auditions that you have for relatively large parts, they'll have 2 or 3 scenes
Right.
that you do for your audition. And when the casting director is being very polite, they think that you're not right for the role, but they don't want to just say go away. they'll just say, "Oh, we're just gonna have you read the first scene,"
Mm.
which is their way of saying, "Sure, go ahead and give it a shot,
Good
kid.
try. Yeah.
Yeah, good try, but you're not the person for this." And so I knew that when they said that, so I was like, "Okay, here we go." So, but I had worked for weeks on this thing. I had it down cold. I had put so much prep into it. And I did the first scene and I finished, and they were like, go ahead and just do the next one.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah. That was a little, victory in the room for me. And I still didn't really think anything of it after I got out of the room, just because a lot of the time that still just means that they don't think that you're right for it. But then I got a callback for it. And then after the callback, got a screen test with Miranda and Jeanette, who played Sam on the show. And there was a chemistry read. It was me and probably 2 or 3 other kids who were reading for my part. And yeah, did that with them and read some scenes together. And I think there's videos of that actually on YouTube. You can see like my original screen test. And it is the definition of cringe.
You're really proud of those screen tests. That's like it's top of the resume.
Yeah, if I could remove one video from the internet, all traces of the video, it would be that. So if
I love that you just pointed it to this video, and then you're like, "But I want it gone forever."
Look, yeah. I don't have any false notions about the fact that kids are very resourceful and they're gonna find this stuff. So I might as well just get it out there in the open with the disclaimer that I don't approve of anything that I say or do in that screen test. I don't know what I was on. Yeah. I am not aware of any medications that I was on, but it looked like I may have been on something that got me a little bit amped up. And I think I was just very excited. So yeah, it's horribly embarrassing for me, but got me the part. So, it is what it is. But yeah, so that was kind of the beginning of it. And as we were making the show, we had no idea if anybody was going to like it or not, because you make it in advance, like 9 or 10 episodes. So right. We were going at it just saying, we're just going to try our best and see what happens. And then, halfway through our first season, it started airing and people dug it, and, it all just kind of took off from there. So it was a really good experience. It was some of the best years of my life, and got a lot of family members out of that show. And yeah, it set me on the path that I'm on today, that I'm very grateful for. So no regrets except for that one video.
That's awesome. Do you have like a particular episode or just one moment from the show that you're like, oh man, this is like a great memory, or just an embarrassing memory? I don't know.
Oh man, I think, well, I guess technically it is tied to the show. But some of it was regarding what happened sort of in real life around it. I think one of my favorite episodes that we did, I can't remember, I think it was called I Shock America. I think whatever it was the episode where we went to be on Jimmy Fallon's late night show. And so it was kind of a surprise to us that Jimmy was a fan and wanted to be involved. And up until that point, we'd actually had a lot of really cool guests. I mean, we had Jack Black and Jim Parsons and Michelle Obama, and there was a pretty deep roster of really cool people who were on the show. And that one was, Jimmy and Higgins, his kind of right-hand man on that show. Tina Fey did a little cameo thing on it. But what we loved about it was that it was the first time we actually got to go on location to another set. Because we had done, episodes where we had gone to Japan, but we went to our parking lot. That was as far as we went. We were still on a sound stage, and, it was still Hollywood. It wasn't Tokyo. So that was kind of a bummer that we had never, we'd gone on into all these cool places as Carly, Sam, and Freddie, but we had never been anywhere as ourselves on the show. Yep. So we got to fly to New York, as a cast. We shot the show on their stage. and we got to tour around 30 Rock,
Hmm.
which is where they film, and got to go to all the historic little rooms and closets in there. And we went to go see SNL that day, and it was the season finale. It was Kristen Wiig's final episode, um, and Mick Jagger was hosting, and Arcade Fire was the musical guest, but Dave Grohl was there too.
Yeah.
And we met Dave before the thing, and he was like, "Hey, is Jerry Trainer here? Spencer here?" We're like, "Oh, we'll go find him for you, Dave
Yeah.
Grohl of the Foo Fighters." And
Yeah.
so we'd like got a picture with him, and he was a big fan, and he had kids, and we went to the SNL after party, and we met Emma Stone there, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such a fan of you guys. I'd love to be on the show." And like, it was just this, like mind blowing collection of events in one weekend that I just never ever thought would happen. And so we were able to embody some of that on the show, but a lot of it was just about experiences that we got to have in real life surrounding that. And just like going around New York together in rented bikes and biking through Central Park.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it was that was probably one of the best things we ever did as a cast. We're super grateful for that whole experience.
That's so cool, man. I know you're saying that you film about 9 or 10 episodes, and then you have no idea whether it's gonna take off or not. And so
Yeah.
just so students, so you guys know a little bit of how I know Nathan. I went to college with his older brother Andrew, and we're good friends all through college, and we're roommates, and so Andrew came to us one day, our kind of friend group, and was like, "Hey, my little brother just got this role on this show called iCarly. It's on Nickelodeon. We got to support him. We got to tune in." And there was no DVR recording things or anything like that. And we didn't have a lot of TV in our dorm rooms, So we all gathered around this common room TV, and it was like 18 grown men watching iCarly.
Really?
Yeah. We watched your whole first season, man. We were rooting for you.
That's
it was
so
a little
cool.
weird because it was a bunch of grown men watching kids show, and then some women came in and stuff. But we were like, gotta support Nathan. We loved it. It was.
Well, I appreciate that. And look, I'll tell you, you're not alone. You have no idea how many letters I've gotten from people saying, "Oh yeah, no, we have like dorm pizza parties where we all sit and watch iCarly." So I think you guys were just a little bit ahead of your time. You were the pioneers. You were probably the
pioneers.
first one.
And honestly, like if you guys watch the show, it's legitimately funny. Like obviously it's geared towards like middle school age ish people, but we were like 18, 19 laughing at stuff.
Yeah.
And, you had some great moments in that show. And the guy who Spencer, right, is the older brother's name, is just that guy is a funny man. He is.
Oh yeah. He's very difficult to work with in that way because you're just always fighting, breaking character and laughing because he's just always trying to mess you up and do stuff. So yeah, he's a joy and probably the funniest person that I know.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was half the reason why it was so fun to be on that show.
Yeah. Well, it was super cool just to see that kind of blow up. But what I think a lot of people don't know is, sometimes people think, Hollywood or success or whatever goes to people's heads, and they become just different, And so I've known Nathan since you were on the show, and we went go-karting once for your birthday randomly. I don't know. I don't remember how old you were. It was like 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, like Nathan has been the same person, I mean, obviously you've changed and grown as a person, but you didn't let success of a show kind of change you, which is super cool. And I think that, that speaks well of your character. So so for the guys that have never seen your show, I think probably most people out there have at least seen it on Nick at some point, or maybe they were fans when they were younger, especially our high schoolers. But if our middle schoolers in particular, they're like, "Oh man, I got to check this show out. This seems like a good one." What would be the best way they could see it?
As far as I know, the best way to see it for free, I think it is still on TV on Teen Nick probably. And honestly, by now that everything is shut down and no one is making TV shows anymore, it may be just on straight up Nickelodeon, but it does air, I think, pretty regularly. You could probably watch it on nick.com. I think it's on Amazon Prime, but you'd have to rent it. the safest way is actually, you know, if you want to get really old school with it, they have like box sets for multiple seasons. There's not, I don't
Those are
understand
called
why.
DVDs for those kids
Right.
that don't have
Yes.
never seen a.
They're these
Yeah.
very odd discs that are
Like,
shiny, and you put them into this box,
mm.
and sometimes they, you know, get scratched, and you have to rub toothpaste on them.
You remember how Blu-rays were a thing for like 20 seconds?
Yeah, yeah. I spent a little too much money on Blu-rays
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
20
me
seconds.
too. Had a Blu-ray player that I was super proud of, and then all the gaming systems could play Blu-rays, and then
Right.
Blu-rays
Yeah.
don't even matter now.
Yep, completely defeated the purpose. So I'm glad, you know, the middle schoolers and high schoolers out there, be grateful that you didn't have to go through that tumultuous time in technology. You guys just went straight to the cloud, you jerks.
Yeah, scrounging around Blockbuster Video trying to find a Blu-ray copy of your DVD you already bought because you're like, this is the future. And then
Yep, exactly.
Funny time, man.
Even just the fact that we can say that we went to Blockbuster, period. Like, I remember when I went to Blockbuster and got VHS. Yeah. That's how old I was.
Yeah.
Now, kids, that's these weird rectangle things that have these spinny wheels on them and tape that rolls through. And before you watch a movie, you have to rewind the whole movie before you can even press play. It was the dark ages. I don't know.
Yeah, how do we survive? Yeah.
We didn't. I'm glad we made it out of that period alive.
Yeah. Well, hey, I know some of these guys want to know, you know, you mentioned your wife, London. She's awesome. And your daughter, Rose, right? Is your daughter's name?
Rosie, yeah.
Rosie, yeah. Oh, is her full name Rosie? And
yeah, straight up Rosie.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we named her partially because we're giant Lord of the Rings nerds. Actually, we're giant Lord of the Rings nerds, and got my Middle Earth blanket.
I knew we were friends for a reason.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so London and I bonded a lot over that, as we were kind of just friends before we ever started dating. And London actually got the idea for Rosie from Rosie Cotton in Lord of the Rings, Sam's wife / crush. And we like looking at Rosie Cotton on Lord of the Rings. I feel like it reminded us so much of what we thought this girl would be. Mm-hmm. And it's so uncanny how remarkably similar it is, just in how she looks for one, and just kind of how she is. She has a very rosy personality. So we got lucky with that name choice. And hopefully we don't have another girl, so we don't have to name her like Galadriel or something, because now the precedent's been set.
Yes. Yeah. No, we that's awesome. I don't know if you know my we talked a little bit before. Most of you guys know my son's name is Caspian. We're big C.S. Lewis fans.
Nice.
So yes, Chronicles of Narnia. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan too. We just couldn't find a name. Rosie is a great one. We didn't think of that. And now you took it, so no one else could ever claim it.
Yeah, no, we own it. Yeah. Everybody else is just stuck. Yeah, Lord of the Rings for dudes is a really hard movie to name kids after. There's not a single.
I mean, Frodo's a pretty cool name.
Yeah, Frodo's pretty cool, but maybe as like a middle.
Yeah.
Because like, what's their nickname? Frody, you know?
Yeah. If you guys are going to name your kids Frodo, we're not trying to make fun of it. You know, you can hold on to that name, and good luck.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I guess maybe Sam would work, but then you got to name him Samwise, which is, you know, kind of on the nose. So, yeah, maybe we did steal the one viable Lord of the Rings name. I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Aragorn, you know, there's, yeah. Theoden, you know.
Strider's actually a pretty sweet name.
Yeah.
You can do Strider. That'd be all right.
Yeah, this show is this whole interview is just going to be baby names now, guys. So yeah, middle schoolers.
Yeah, sorry, you guys can log off anytime. We're going to be here for hours.
Yep. Hey, how did you and London meet? You said you were friends before you started dating.
Yeah, so we met actually on a movie set for a film called Into the Storm, which I did. It was the job I had immediately following iCarly. So like when we were wrapping up that show, I had already auditioned for the movie and I knew that I had the job. So a couple months after, well, actually only like a month after the show ended, I was flying to Detroit to do this movie. And London was on that movie as well. She joined probably in the last 2 or 3 weeks of production. She was on the stunt team. She had done stunt work in the past for a movie called Oz the Great and Powerful, which was like the
Yeah.
prequel to The Wizard of Oz. James Franco, Michelle Williams, and Mila Kunis, and Rachel Weisz. She was Michelle Williams' stunt double. They look very similar, stature and everything. And she was doing like wire work for that, because they're always like when they're floating in bubbles and doing stuff. She was like the gymnastics person who was doing all that. So she got into stunt work from that, and then did this movie afterward. And we were in a lot of the same scenes together. She just played one of the students at the high school who was getting evacuated with us, and we were positioned in the scene, in kind of the climactic scene, right next to each other. So we ended up just like talking, because we were sitting next to each other for hours at a time, and just became friends in a very platonic, co-workery way. At that point, I had been in a relationship for like 2.5 years, that I was, very solid at the time, and I was convinced was going straight to the altar. So I didn't really think of her in a romantic way at all, and we weren't flirting or anything. But over time, I just got to know her a little bit over the course of the filming. And when we ended on, as the film was wrapping up on the last day, she was handing out thank you notes to people, which is kind of a common tradition on sets as you're wrapping up a project. And on the back, she had written a Bible verse. And shame on me for not being able to quote it, but it's the iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
As iron sharpens iron, so we sharpen one another. Yeah, the proverb. So she'd written that, and I just kind of, she was very different on set. Like she was just not a traditional industry person, and I was trying to figure out why. And then I saw that Bible verse, and I was like, that's why. So, just in her demeanor, she just had this like light about her that made people gravitate toward her. And so that explained everything at that point. So we would start talking about it, and she was saying she was potentially going to be moving out to Los Angeles, I think in the near future. And we were talking about churches that we were going to, and there's one called Reality LA down in Hollywood that I was attending at the time. And she had said she had heard of it, or I think maybe she'd even been there once, and was thinking about going there too. So we kind of had that like, yeah, well, maybe I'll see you there, at some point. And then we just parted ways and didn't really talk that was 2012. And then we didn't talk really at all, other than like that, Merry Christmas group text I would get every once in a while, but it was never anything specific. And after right around the time that the movie came out, there was really big delays because it was so graphics heavy. It took a long time in post-production to make look right. It didn't come out till 2014, and right before the movie came out, my girlfriend and I at the time ended up breaking up after about like 4 years. So that had ended, and then about 2 months later the movie was coming out, and I was just kind of checking in with other cast members and stuff who I'd become friends with on that set. And she was one of those people that I was like, oh man, I think she's in LA. I should see, what she's up to, or if she's seen the movie, I should just check in. And so I did, and it starting that day just became a conversation of like text messages that were about this long, and got progressively longer, and we just became really, really tight best friends. It was me and her, my roommate at the time, and another friend of ours, and we would just kind of do everything together. And we got to know each other for months and months, and then finally we had this moment where we were like, oh, we actually really like each other, and maybe we should see where this goes. We ended up having this conversation until like 3 a.m. about the kind of person that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives with. And we realized at the end of the conversation, we were just describing each other. And then we felt kind of dumb after that. And so everything just sort of progressed very naturally from there. And within not very long, we had met each other's families, and everybody was like super into the idea of us being together. And I think that accelerated the process a lot. We went from dating to married in 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's fast. Like, I don't, for all of the youngins listening, that is very rare. I would not recommend that at all. Because, like, for example, I mean, real talk, like, I've never really talked about this before, so here's a freebie. In the relationship that I was in for the 4 years leading up to that, we started dating when I was like 16, 17 years old. People change a lot from 16 to your mid 20s. Like, even just neurologically, there's so much science there with neuroplasticity and how much your brain changes and your foundational personality fundamentally changes in that time. You need a lot of time if you're dating now before you get to the point where you're considering spending the rest of your life with that person. Because I can guarantee you, from like 20 to 24, it will be a different person coming out of it. So, and that was what I found. You know, our personalities had just changed so much to the point where it just didn't fit. And you know, we were kind of in that age range still when we started dating, but we had gotten to know each other as best friends for so long before that, where we didn't have those, you know, rose-colored dating glasses on for that whole time. We got to know the nitty-gritty of each other and the not trying to be impressive aspect of each other. Right. And we got to know who we were on a very core fundamental level. And that was able to let us accelerate the process a little bit because we were able to see who we really were, you know, before we started dating. So that's something that I really recommend, is like, marry your best friend, because, you know, there's a decent chance that that could work if they're still your best friend and it's not in that, you know, romantic, very chemically brain hormone way. So also family approval, I think, is very important in that way too. Like, I don't think we would have done things the way that we did if not every single person on both sides of our family was like, oh yeah, no, that's your person. You need to marry that person.
Yep.
So that was really important too. And we would have waited a lot longer if it hadn't been for the fact that everyone was super on board. So yeah, it was real fast. But we had known each other for years leading up to that. And then it just culminated pretty quickly once everything kind of got rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Because you guys got married, I think, a little bit either before or right after Lex and I did. 2015, right?
Yeah, November 15th, 2015. And it was a full-on Lord of the Rings wedding. We're ridiculous. Like, we had, on the way to the ceremony, there was like a no admittance except on party business poster. And our guest book, we had a friend do like a Tree of Gondor like design on the front, and everything was in Lord of the Rings font. And we had a cornhole set that had Mr. and Mrs. in Lord of the Rings, like Tolkien writing. It was ridiculous. It's a little bit eye roll now, I will admit, but we were happy about it at the time.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I could have gotten away with doing that at ours, but I would have tried to pull off Lord of the Rings too if I could. Alexa likes Lord of the Rings. I don't know if, I mean, not quite the fan London is apparently. So that's, yeah.
my echo just heard you say the name that can't be named before listening to you.
Oh, so, yes. Is
that difficult in your house?
Well, we don't have one of those evil devices.
Your Google people?
We have a Google. Yeah. Yes, we got to. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, for that reason, probably. Although you can change it to respond to computer if you want to feel very Star Trek-y. So
we've got you know, if people say my wife's name, which I won't say again, so it doesn't trigger your device, but you know, people will walk up to her and be like, "Hey, how's the weather?" You know, like, without fail, almost every week she gets this. And students, just so you guys know, she's never ever gotten tired of it. So just keep doing it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was how many times before she just slapped the person in the face? Just before they could even finish the question. Hey, how's the...
Yeah.
I imagine it was after the third time.
She's a pretty patient person, but there's a lot of eye rolling that happens just as soon as you walk away. How's the weather? And you walk away chuckling, and she goes, fifth time this week, you know, heard that one. So,
yeah.
But
she should tattoo it on her forehead. Just be like, just look here.
Yeah. Well, you know, for the students that don't know, you know, and Nathan keeps referencing Lord of the Rings, the author there is J.R.R. Tolkien, and I'm a huge Tolkien fan as well. C.S. Lewis is another huge influence of mine, and J.R. Tolkien actually brought C.S. Lewis to know Jesus, which is super, super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, they used to, C.S. Lewis was an atheist, and they were good friends, and they just meet and kind of argue a lot. And J.R. Tolkien eventually, through prayer, and God eventually used him to lead C.S. Lewis to Jesus, which is cool. And so Nathan, you're a Christ follower. That's a, I mean, we're having you on here as part of our youth group just because
Right.
we're friends, and it's great talking to you and getting for you to share with the kids a little bit. But I think the most important thing is that you're a follower of Jesus, and so I'd love for you to share just a little bit about your testimony and particularly following Jesus in Hollywood or through your teenage years and through when things can be kind of difficult. You were in a place that's very, very anti-Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you stay strong in your faith? I'm sure that students would love to know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, going kind of back to the beginning, my story of how I actually came to know Christ is not particularly script worthy, but I grew up in a Christian home. Both of my parents, as you know, are very strong believers, and all of our family was raised in church, just as kind of a traditional Christian way. And when I was 4, I had just recently gotten in trouble with the neighbor kid across the street and had my first introduction to the concept of sin, and when we do things wrong, what that is and what the concept of that is and the penalty of it is. And right after, probably the week after that, was Easter season, so right around this time of the year. And my mom put on the Jesus movie, like the classic 80s Jesus movie. And she was upstairs and I was just doing something and, kind of watching it at the same time. And it came to the part of the movie with his crucifixion.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out. I flipped out a little bit, and my 4-year-old brain was like, what is going on? This doesn't seem right. And I'm sure I had known the concept of the cross or crucifixion or Jesus died for us or whatever, something that you would teach a 4-year-old in Sunday school at church. But it had never really, I'd never seen it. I'd never visualized it before. And so I flipped out and I went upstairs and asked my mom, why did they put those nails in Jesus's hands? And so she laid out for me again, but in a much clearer way now that I had been able to see it, what Jesus did for us and what it means for us now. And led me in prayer that day, and I accepted Jesus, and have been a believer ever since. So that I started pretty young, 4 years old, and went through my whole life that way. I got baptized when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Did just kind of the classic, did the church baptism class, and did that with my brothers. We all did it at the same time. And honestly, I think my relationship with God didn't really take that much hold and become as real to me as it did when I was a teenager, which was also right at the exact same time that iCarly started, largely because of what you're saying. The industry is not exactly Christian friendly. And things happened in the industry and on that set that hurt me very deeply. And there was contention for periods of time while I was working there, and I had to rely on God alone, because He was the only person looking out for me, really. And my parents, of course. When you're a minor on set, you have to have a parent there. So it was me and mostly my mom just there, like turning my dressing room into like a prayer sanctuary, basically. And I had to grow a lot in those periods of time, and I had no choice but to just release everything that was going on to God, because I couldn't do anything myself. And it was very discouraging. And I had a lot of trouble with it for a long time. But out of that did come a lot of growth and understanding about my foundational need to have that in my life, and to have grace on other people, especially people that hurt you and do things wrong, and do damage to your life and to your heart, and to be able to turn around and show them love and grace and forgiveness. That was all a lot of stuff that I had to really hit the ground running to learn. So that was when it became a lot more important. I will say a lot of that has to do with my parents. They deserve pretty much all of the credit for that, because, you were talking earlier about how the fact that, I was in the industry and did, a popular show and everything, but I made my best effort to stay the same. That's largely because of my family life. My brothers didn't treat me any differently. I was still the third born, lowest on the totem pole child. I still was the one picking up the dog poop in the backyard. Nothing changed for me there, but in addition to keeping me grounded and not letting me get a big head, they also very much had to guide me in growth spiritually, in a way that I think I don't have enough of a high regard, honestly, of my spiritual development at that point to think that I could have done it alone. I very much needed other people in my life, and people at church, my youth pastor, and primarily my parents, to really get me through that and guide me through what I needed to do, to read and grow and learn to mature in that way. However, I guess I would say the downside is, because those teen years very much are the time that God has to become very real and personal to you, and you kind of have to take ownership of your own spiritual development. Because I was inhibited, well, not inhibited, but I was so heavily bombarded with all of these things happening, I couldn't really do it on my own, and I did have to rely on my parents a lot. That's the one downside, actually, that I had experienced, was I didn't really even get that much of an opportunity to take spiritual ownership of my own life. I was there, and I was a willing participant, but I was more the co-pilot, right, in that. And my parents were sort of steering the ship, because there was so much going on that I literally needed them, to help me through it. And so I didn't really realize until, honestly, that's part of what this coronavirus thing has done for me. I've realized that I've been sort of handicapped in that way, and that I need to do more myself, to really take ownership and take initiative, and not let other people tell me, hey, you should do this, you should read this book, you should listen to this. It is my responsibility to do myself if I want to be able to really grow. And that's something, I'm 27 years old, and that's something that really is only taking hold now. So I guess that's what I would encourage to the kids of, the youth group that are watching this, is now is the key critical time, to basically become spiritual grownups before you're even able to become legal grownups. This is the time that the most stuff is going to happen to you in the most condensed and vicious way. I mean, I lucked out in that I was homeschooled all through high school because I was working on the show. But high school is brutal, man. Yeah. My wife has horrible experiences from her Christian high school. She was deeply wounded and scarred by people there who did horrible things. And she still carries those wounds with her now. And those are things that that she's processing. And that's actually part of what she's doing during this coronavirus stuff. It's been very beneficial in that way. And so this is the time where spiritual development becomes so crucial, and being able to talk to your peers, other people in the youth group, to share these experiences and share wisdom and knowledge. And, you never know who just got out of an experience that you're just getting into. So it's something, and you can almost guarantee at least one of the people that's working in the youth group, one of the youth pastors, has dealt with this either in middle school, high school, or college, or just in their daily life, in their family life. So, that's something that I wish that I had been able to do more when I was the age of, the kids who might be watching this. So, yeah, it's been a road, but I'm grateful that it has happened the way that it has, because it's forced me to, solidify myself in really specific ways.
Yeah, well, and what you're alluding to is awesome, because you what you're saying is you had a lot of discipleship that was kind of pointing you, but almost they're carrying you, even through your,
Right.
and so there's definitely nothing wrong with having people pointing you towards Jesus and championing you and pushing you on, as you're saying, right? But you also got to be like, I got to take ownership too, and start really learning how to be a spiritual adult.
Right.
Yeah, and growing in that way. So that's awesome, man. And I love that you have been one of those people who, even though that happened, you could have been one of those people that the second you became an adult walked away from Jesus. It happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it sounds like what you did instead was just go, nope, I need Jesus more now as an adult than I did even then, maybe, and I got to learn how to make it my own. And
Yeah.
I love that. Love the honesty. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. No, I honestly think that's one of the things that is so scary about the industry. Like, maybe it's just because it's more publicized, but it just seems like per capita, the amount of celebrities and people in film, TV, music, and sports who are either hooked on drugs or are engaging in horribly self-destructive behavior in order to self-medicate, or just kill themselves or go completely off the rails because of all of the pressures of the industry and the fact that they don't have the foundation that they need to work through it. I honestly don't know how anyone makes it in the industry or in the world without Jesus. And I think once you get out into the world, and once you're, especially even just starting in college, where you don't have a job, you're not looking for an apartment, you're not doing full on #adulting stuff, but you're starting, and you're in an environment where college professors aren't exactly fans of Christians, and they make a game out of trying to vilify and dumb down your faith. That's something that I never got to experience, because I worked straight through high school and then went straight into working. So I never went to college, but I know that that's a thing. I know my older brothers had to deal with that.
Yeah.
So
Andrew and I had a lot of conversations about that actually at Long Beach.
I'm sure.
We went to a very, very secular school. So yeah,
for sure. So I think that's something that's also reinforcing the fact that what you're doing now in your spiritual formation in middle school and high school is so, so important, because you are about to get thrown to the wolves in college, and then you're going to get thrown into the fire when you get out into the world. And everything is going to test you. Everything is going to pull you away. Every single commercial is going to tell you, hey, guess what? You're not enough unless you buy this car, or you wear these clothes, or unless you have a girlfriend who looks like this. There is really nothing out there that the world is going to offer that is going to do anything for you. It's going to suck you dry unless you have some kind of spiritual foundation to come back to, because you realize that that's the only thing that doesn't change. Especially in the industry, it's such a, the job security is absolutely none. I'm literally, the definition of an actor is someone who's employed 98% of the time until the 2 months out of the year that they are working, if they're lucky. So, the emotions that run in that are just this. It's a roller coaster. The only thing that stops this is a relationship with a God who goes like this. There is no fickleness. There is no unfaithfulness in a relationship with God, except for what we contribute to it. That we back away and we leave our priorities behind. But God's always there, and he's just, kind of waiting and really hoping that you come back to it, because he wants to be as close to us as we're willing to be to him. And so I think that's the only, frankly, the only reason why I'm alive or have any semblance of a life is the fact that I had that to fall back on, because Hollywood would have chewed me up, spat me out, just like it does most of the people who work their way into it.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome, man. That's great wisdom you shared with the kids. Thank you for that. Do you have a favorite passage of scripture, or something that just has always kind of come back to you, that kind of points you back to Jesus?
I actually, as I was going through Kingdom Man, this Tony Evans book, I think one of the verses that really stuck out to me was 2 Corinthians 9:8, which says, "And God is able to make all grace abound in you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed," which I think is like I feel like there's some statistic in there where that has to be the most superlative verse in the Bible, that is like, God's able to make all grace abound in you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed. Like, in the scheme of the Bible, I don't think that there is a more positive verse that exists
Yeah.
and that's more encouraging to be able to say, hey, look, everyone knows, like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and with God all things are possible, and all these like cliche things that are written like on the ceiling of the gym that you work out at. But this is one of those verses that I think people don't necessarily know as much, that just shows, like, if you are living and working for God, and if your motivation is to advance his kingdom and his message of love and acceptance of everybody in the world, there is no limit to the power that you will have to do that. Like, if everything, even in your job, if everything that you're doing is to glorify God and work to make his name greater, you literally have the power of the creator of the universe to do that thing. And you can't get tired of doing it. You can't be hindered from doing it unless it is redirection, to do something even more specific. You cannot fail. Like, there's a lot of failure out there in the world. There's a lot of failure in the industry. But if I'm focusing on that, I cannot fail by definition. I think that that's something that, we could all really stand to cling on to, especially in this new era that we're about to head out into the world.
Yeah, oh, love it, love it. Hey, before we head out, is there anything else that you want to add? I mean, you've dropped a lot of wisdom on these students just now. Anything else that you'd love to share with them?
Kind of along the lines of what we were saying, with this being a critical time just in the phase of life of a high schooler and middle schooler, to really focus on spiritual formation. This specifically what we are in right now, this coronavirus season, where, by the time this is posted, maybe the lockdown is lifted. I kind of doubt it, at least not in California. We are going to be at home for a while with nothing really to do. And this thing might go into the summer when there's going to be no school to do. You have a choice at this point. And this is something that I've come to terms with too. You can either play Fortnite for the next 2 months, or you can do something that will change your future and your eternity, and potentially the eternity of a lot of other people and the rest of their lives on earth, by prioritizing your growth and development and working on yourself, and even like working on yourself physically. Like, I started doing yoga every day, and I've been able to touch, it's rough. It's real rough. And it did not go well at the beginning, but for the first time in my life, I can touch my toes.
Yeah.
Like, make it as simple as that to start. Just work on yourself, taking care of yourself, eat well, and sit and like read good books, read your Bible. Like, I know that that's kind of boring sometimes. It's better to read books that are in a more modern language, but even if it means reading the Message, something that is way more contemporized and easier to digest in our modern kind of contemporary English language, get in the word. I've grown so much from doing devotions. Jesus calling and God calling are both great, really short daily devotions that take just a few minutes, and then just think about it, like pray about it. This is such a great opportunity where we are being forced to slow down to the point of grinding to a halt. And I honestly don't know if this is ever going to happen again in our lives. And I think young people in high school and middle school are at a prime perfect opportunity where you don't have to worry about losing your job because you're not supporting a family or yourself. You don't have to worry about paying rent. You don't have to worry about so many of the things that are freaking out adults right now. You get to just sit and be quiet and slow down and like get off your phone. I've tried really hard to get off my phone and try to stop checking the news all the time and try to just sit and be still and have time to myself. And with my wife, we're doing just like sitting and watching movies, and rather than watching a movie going like that, like we're used to doing, we're sitting and watching a movie. It doesn't have to just be spiritual stuff. Just learn to slow down and focus on one thing at a time, because this may never happen again. Oh, wow, the light's getting really bad. This may never happen again.
I was going to say the light's just making it like an angelic thing.
Oh!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'll just go like this now. This is a little bit better.
No, that's yeah. No, I love it, man. I think all that stuff is so true. We've all had to kind of change priorities, and as Nathan said, guys, this isn't just like a middle school, high school thing where we're trying to learn how to reset and slow down. This is us. This is Nathan. This is myself. I'm 31, and it's the same thing of just trying to, like, how hooked to my screen am I? How am I wasting my time? And one of my big fears was that I just didn't want to waste this season. And we're fortunate in the way that right now we're not stressed about income per se. I mean, there's always you're an actor. You can't have no productions forever, but right now we have this time where we're able to just kind of stop, refocus, and realign our hearts towards Jesus. And students, I don't want you to miss it. And you're hearing that heart from Nathan as well. We don't want you to miss that chance to realign. So, dude, thank you so much for sharing. If students wanted to connect with you or just follow what you're doing, what would be a good way to keep tabs on you?
All of the socials. It's just my name, Nathan Kress, on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook.com/official Nathan Kress. I think I have something there. And just shoot me a comment or shoot me a DM or something. And if you want to watch or listen to the podcast I do every week where we talk about some of this stuff, again, Radioactive Dads, also on Twitter and Instagram. And that's where I'll be for the foreseeable future.
It's a great podcast, man. It's been really fun kind of tuning
Thanks.
Listening to you and Brett. So it's awesome. Thanks again for talking, Nathan. Before we let you go, how can we be praying for you and for London?
Oh, wow. Great question. I think a big thing for me that I really want is just to get prayer for consistency with all of these things that I'm doing. I'm really happy about them, but I know that my tendency is to let them fall off. And again, like what we were saying earlier, the distractions of the world are all eventually going to come flooding back. So in the same way that I'm praying for you, Zach, and for everybody watching, that we can all do good things with this period of time, but also stay the course after. And to really commit to growing and being different and making a difference and showing people what it can be like to go through this world post-coronavirus without fear. Because we're the only people in the world who truly have nothing to fear, because we know who's at work on this side of heaven and we know where we're going after. So it's a pretty great spot to be, all things considered. And I hope that we're able to communicate that and make an example of that to everybody else. So in the same way that I would pray that for you guys, I would say that for me as well.
Oh, so true. So good, man. Hey, we'll want to pray for you right now. And students, I know this is this is a little bit of a pre-recorded. You probably saw the Zoom is even choppy in this pre-recording. It would have been far worse live. Mine and Nathan's faces were frozen the entire time. So doing this live would have been tough. So it was recorded here. But students, we'd love it if you pray for him right now with me. So I'm just going to extend my hand towards the screen, and we're going to do a virtual Zoom prayer for you, Nathan. And
all right,
time. So, God, thank you so much for this chance to speak to just an incredible brother of ours, Nathan Kress, who just shared a lot of wisdom. God, I pray that we don't take that for granted. I pray that we use the wisdom that Nathan has shared tonight, and we take it to heart, that we would continue to work on developing a closer relationship with you day in and day out, that we would not waste this time, that this would not be God, a wasted opportunity for us, but that we would develop more of a relationship with you and hopefully point others towards you as well. I pray for consistency for Nathan and his family and this and the goals that he and London are setting, that they would continue to meet those goals, to become better spiritually, physically, emotionally, everything else. And God, I pray that for all of us, that we would just be consistent, that we would not give up meeting together, that we would continue to relate and reach out, no matter how isolating this time feels, God. That we would even use the gift of technology like Zoom to continue to meet together and not give up, as it says in Hebrews 10:24 and 25, but that we would encourage each other and keep pushing each other along towards love and good deeds. So thank you for Nathan, and thank you for his family. And we just pray over him and for the rest of us, and that God would continue to direct our steps and lead us in this time. In your name, amen. We hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Go ahead and head to your Zoom groups now. We're excited to dive into discussion with you. The Zoom groups are in the link in our profile in the link tree, or you can ask your team huddle leader how to get into your Zoom groups. Have a great night.